You are seated on a plane, maybe looking out of the window, maybe lost in your thoughts. You think this is routine, but something invisible stirs beneath the surface of every single flight you take. It began with one tragic morning. In that moment, everything changed. Today, I'm going to show you how 9/11 reshaped the skies, the way we fly, the way we feel, and how that affects you every time you step on board. There I am standing under the wing of a gleaming jet, years after that fateful morning. The air hums with engines, boarding bridges hiss. In that same spot once stood a world before 9/11, a world where airport security felt like checking in at a hotel. No body scans, no liquids rules, no shoes off. Air travel was free, familiar, trusting. Then September 11th, 2001 happened, and in a matter of hours, grief shattered that trusting world, and aviation would never be the same. From here on, I want you to lean in with me and feel the gravity of the changes. I want you to feel how each new rule, each scan, each careful pause at the checkpoint is shaped by a longing to protect, born from one day's tragedy. Airliners nationwide were grounded. Airports fell silent like never before. This was the first time the entire U.S. airspace shut down. Flights canceling hundreds, thousands of travelers stranded. The world stood still, and not just in emotion. Supply chains froze, families fractured apart. Airports like Dulles, JFK, LAX felt abandoned and eerie. For aviation professionals, it was chaos. Controllers, pilots, baggage handlers, flight attendants. Everyone faced confusion and grief. Then came a monumental political and operational leap. The Aviation and Transportation Security Act passed fast. The TSA, brand new, in place by November 2001, just 60 days later. Imagine queues stretching, faces worried, unfamiliar boxes for body scanners. Casual smiles were replaced by thorough pats, ID checks, metal detectors. In years to follow, TSA became an institution you cannot avoid, a checkpoint between you and the cabin. TSA quickly rolled out behaviors we now endure as normal. Tray after tray on conveyor belts, electronics out of bags, liquids bagged. And each element carries its own origin story. The no liquids rule, born after uncovering a plot involving liquid explosives disguised as soft drinks. Shoes removed after a shoe bombing attempt. Enhanced pat-downs when body scanners misfired or were bypassed. As you stand in line now at the checkpoint, try to imagine what that felt like back then. Bewilderment, anger, grief, justification, confusion. This tension, this uneasy acceptance of what security means today, was forged in that painful era. Before September 11th, cockpit doors were light, sometimes even open mid-flight. Passengers could talk to pilots. Flight decks were not sealed fortresses. That morning changed everything. Cockpit doors were armored, locked, radios sealed. Access required codes or permission. Pilots were trained for hijack scenarios. How to stay sealed, how to respond, how to make split-second decisions under hate and fear. Air marshals were deployed visibly or covertly on flights. Every flight became an armored hunk of metal with guards flying invisibly among us, or codes shared only with the crew. Each time you see a locked cockpit door, every time you assume you can't walk back there, that feeling of safety is born from the memory of hijacked planes. It is protection sculpted by tragedy. The jet engines on the tarmac are loud and efficient, but inside airports there's a much quieter technological revolution. X-ray machines gave way to advanced imaging technologies, full-body scanners, millimeter wave systems, explosive detection devices, cameras scanning faces, algorithms detecting anomalies. Each innovation came through approval, debate, controversies, privacy worries, health concerns, speed versus scrutiny. Some said body scanners were intrusive. Others demanded that we yield that privacy for safety. Lawsuits were filed, policies debated. But slowly, with each iteration, the screenings became faster, more precise, less invasive, or at least more accepted. Now, as you step forward into the scan, that hum of the millimeter wave machine, that flash of software looking beneath your shirt, behind your skin, that too is a legacy of September 11th. Air travel now is not just about planes. It's as much about people, behaviors, culture. Flight attendants train in crisis response and threat assessment. Crew members learn to recognize suspicious behavior or potential radicals, not just open emergency doors and serve coffee. You as a passenger are also taught to be the eyes. Announcements remind you to report unattended bags, odd behavior, overheard threats. See something, say something is more than a slogan. It is the result of a culture that grew in the uneasy days after September 11th. A culture that calls every traveler a partner in keeping the skies safe. When you glance around rows and notice another passenger lingering near overhead bins or acting startled, your mind quietly ticks. Is that okay? That mindset, that awareness, brewed in the hours and months after that day. Airports themselves changed outline. Gone were open-plan arrivals and open pathways. New airports have segregated zones, secure corridors, defended perimeters. Glass-walled lobbies replaced by strategic funnel points. Pre-screening areas and mixed zones emerged. You walk through lines. Clear zones before the checkpoint. Clear zones after. Every structure, every corridor intentionally funnels people through checkpoints. The architecture is a silent guard. You might not notice it consciously, but the swelling, then narrowing, the feeling of progression through invisible gates. That is design born of grief, of the urgent impulse to channel and contain. In airports built post-2001 or renovated after, that sense of controlled movement, secure flow, is baked in. When you stroll from curb to gate, you're walking through decades of security by design. On the ground, in offices, behind screens, intelligence agencies coordinate watch lists, passenger name records, behavioral data. No-fly lists, enhanced passenger information, pre-travel screening programs like TSA PreCheck, Global Entry, Secure Flight. These are algorithms and databases calculating risk before you even show your boarding pass. The idea? Keep dangerous people from boarding. Comfort the rest. These programs emerged gradually. Secure Flight in 2009 shifted vetting from airlines to TSA. Later came PreCheck, trusted traveler lanes. Global Entry for international travelers. Even the idea of scanning your passport and face before boarding, automated kiosks, biometric screening, that is all in pursuit of safe skies. Now, when you breeze past the lane, knowing you're pre-cleared, it's easy to forget the days when everyone lined up the same way, scanned the same way, suffered the same delays. That privilege, that speed, is a product of systems born to heal what was broken. We talk about technology, policies, architecture, but there is also emotion, anxiety, reassurance, resilience. September 11th did not just change procedures, it changed how we feel about flying. News reports how some avoid travel, flashbacks to tragedies, fear of heights now mingled with fear of attacks. Or in contrast, a hardened resolve. Travel as defiance of terror. That emotional context seeps into every flight. When your seatbelt light dings, when the flight attendant reminds you to stow your tray, when you lock eyes with a TSA agent scanning your boarding pass, there is a subtle emotional resonance rooted in memories many of us hold, even if only unconsciously. Even silence inside a cabin once masked chatter. Now it sometimes carries quiet gratitude that nothing terrible is happening. It's emotional baggage we all share, held in common air. September 11th was a US event, but aviation responds globally. Europe, the Middle East, Asia, all adapted. Some adopted even stricter rules than the US. Others tweaked according to their own threat calculations. Some centralized security, others regionalized. Yet one lesson echoed. Global aviation is interconnected. A hijacked plane in one region could target assets worldwide. ICAO guidance changed. Overflight rules, passenger data sharing across borders, joint intelligence initiatives. So when you board in Tokyo, Dubai, London, security you face is aligned with a global narrative that began with 9/11. That uniformity, scanners, ID checks, behavior detection, is a shared global legacy. Terror tactics evolve. Hijackings faded, but threats mutated. Cyber attacks targeting flight systems, drones flying near airports, insider threats, biological risks. Aviation security expanded from metal detectors to firewalls, anti-drone radar, behavioral algorithms, even sanitation zones after pandemics. In 2025, you might still be wearing a mask or reaching for sanitizer mid-flight. That too is part of the continuum. September 11th taught us the impetus to adapt. That vigilance cannot rest. Today's safety includes both physical and digital territories. Every time you connect your device to in-flight Wi-Fi or see a mobile device-based boarding pass scanned, you're benefiting from security protocols that extend far beyond explosives, beyond the body, into code, networks, airwaves. Let me tell you a story. A flight attendant named Maria, who was working her first year on September 11th, 2001. After that day, every time she greets you in her calm voice, offers peanuts, gives a safety demo, she is also carrying a story of grief, of renewed purpose, of devotion to safety. The captain at the helm, hidden behind a fortified door. Maybe she or he once reached out to a lost passenger or comforted a child in those early anxious flights when travelers trembling from fear on board. So many air industry professionals dedicated their lives to safeguarding. They trained in trauma, in calm, in protocols, in human comfort. That devotion reaches you. Even in the smallest way, the way your seatbelt strap clicks, is guided by the determination of people who refuse to let fear win. We rarely see them, but their devotion touches us each time we take off, each time we land. You're watching this video. Maybe you'll board a flight tomorrow. Think of how you'll walk through the airport. Think of the scanner hum, the locked cockpit door, the secure funnels. Think of the emotion pulsing quietly beneath every moment. Vigilance and belonging, anxiety and trust. That security you feel is both physical and psychological. It is built by steel and screening, by memory and method, by grief and courage. And yes, by the hard lessons learned that September morning. So what does the future look like? More predictive screening. AI risk profiling, fingerprint or facial scans to board, contactless security lanes, even remote check-ins before you land at the airport, leaving you almost drip-fed through security with minimal delay. Maybe one day you'll scan your face from home, pass an airport checkpoint on your phone, pick up a biometric boarding card that's embedded in your retina. And through it all, you'll still be standing at a gateway threatened by new possibilities, yet always shielded by the systems born in the aftermath of tragedy. What remains is the promise that we build, that we adapt, that we endure. Every time you fly today, you carry an invisible legacy, a system built from the ashes of loss, security that hums softly beneath the surface of every movement. But here's the unsettled question. What will tomorrow bring? Will our protective walls keep pace with evolving threats? Will we hold fast to balance between freedom and safety, emotional reach and vigilance? So next time you settle into your seat, take a breath and wonder, am I more safe, or are we still chasing security in a world that keeps shifting? The door closes, the engines hum, and the sky awaits.